Okay, so for some of you, you've seen some of this before, but as a refresher, since Miss Cotton wasn't with us last when we kind of ran through the launch of Reading is My Superpower in early December, but I'd do a couple of review slides really quickly and then get into our preliminary evaluation of the results of those efforts to launch it. And what you're getting passed around is some spreadsheets because the numbers are kind of small up on the screen. Okay? Okay, so as a, whoa, that's weird. Huh. Okay, apologies for that. I wonder what is going on with the computer because it looked really good before. Okay, so as a refresher, Reading is My Superpower is our umbrella initiative to kind of capture all of our early literacy activities under one set of kind of collaborative branding for the district. So in the bucket for Reading is My Superpower is things like the bookmobile that visits communities throughout the summer in particular and school breaks, providing free self-selected books to kids in our county, as well as some of the other book delivery programs that happen in schools. For example, at Gypsum Elementary School, they partner with Book Trust and they do a big book trust and Scholastic, and right before the holidays they did a big book distribution thing. And then on December 8th, roughly, we launched Footsteps to Brilliance, which is our app, which had been available to our schools from the beginning of school around August 16th. But in the middle of December, we took on to introduce it to the community at large and the greater all of Eagle County. So I think you've all seen some of the branding, the logo development, things like that. The T-shirts were around. I think you all got your T-shirts. Did you get a T-shirt? We'll cover you. I have a few left over. This is our little kiddos who helped us at a video shoot at Edwards Elementary, and their very mature principal playing around. So some of the materials, I think you've seen them all. There were some posters up in the hallways there. The things on the right are the two-sided bookmarks that were available not only at the schools, but we made them available at all the libraries and rec centers and public places, just everywhere we could go. Shelley, I think you took some to, or I did, to Homestead Court Club and places like that. Every place we could just litter the counter with bookmarks to try and get our community folks to register their young ones to use Footsteps to Brilliance. We did a bunch of radio advertising, especially in December, and now we're going into a second wave of some of that as we approach the break next week. Heather and I co-opted KZYR one Friday and did Last DJ. We have another plan to do some of that coming up and keep the fun happening out in the community. We did a whole lot of advertising in the Vail Daily and other places with the registration information. And the posters, which were bilingual, so no matter where they showed up, they were known. We did an appearance on TV8 to introduce the program out there, and we were invited to return with some preliminary results. So after the break, we'll probably do another appearance on the morning show. And then, of course, we did a superintendent column, and we've been working with the Vail Daily about doing a feature story about this, but we really wanted to get some results to talk about so that it wasn't just, gee, the school district started this cool initiative, but then what? So we have some results now to talk about. And generating a lot of school excitement. Thank you to Dr. Lopez for some of these pictures that she took while she was visiting schools right before the holiday break. A lot of the schools had kickoff events and launches of competitions amongst their various grade levels for reading over the holiday break to try and encourage them to use Footsteps of Brilliance. So we made sure that all of our teachers, preschool through grade 3, had shirts and gave them out to pretty much everybody else. All of K through 5 and received earbuds right before the holiday break with the bookmarks so that they weren't like bugging their parents while they were on Footsteps of Brilliance the entire time that they were on holiday break, things like that. Okay, so the good news, or some of it. We'll let this sit in for a minute. We had a 119% increase in the average word exposure per week from the time that we launched this, and then from August. Then we measured to when we officially launched on December 8th, and then to actually this morning when I reran the numbers again. And looking back on it, and the reason that word exposure is really critical for early literacy is the research tells us that the more that kids are exposed to words from an early age, whether they're spoken, written, they see them, those sorts of things, the more they come to school prepared because they're used to seeing and hearing words in their everyday life. The more that kids come to school with a word gap, and we know that kids that aren't exposed to a lot of both talking at home or stimulating environments like early care and preschool programs and things like that, they come with a word gap, and then it's very difficult for them to catch up. On average, our kids read 740,000 words per week after the launch compared to 338,000 before the launch. So if you think about August through mid-December, it was available in schools. Some of our schools embraced it heavily and really got around it and got it being used a lot in their classrooms. And I'm talking about Footsteps to Brilliance. Others, frankly, not so much, and they say, you know, they were busy, there was stuff going on, it was trying to get the school year going. But then once we started getting really noisy with our principals and visiting schools and doing things like the T-shirts and the posters and really getting the PTAs knowledgeable and doing, we did a school-wide school messenger to all families, all the way through high school, all of them, to let them know that this is happening. We saw a spike in usage, which is really cool. Overall, there's been an 80% increase in the use of Footsteps to Brilliance during school since the launch, and a 76% increase outside of school, which is what's really cool, because in school we can control and push the usage, but if they really, the kids really like it and adopt it and they want to use it at home, it's the outside of school use that's really going to drive this home. So very cool. And our kids have read over 11 million words to date across Eagle County, which when I talked to the folks at Footsteps to Brilliance, which I do regularly, and went over this presentation with them today, they said that is amazing for a community of our size. And this isn't me patting, but it's amazing for our community and our schools to have embraced it the way that they did and how they rallied around it, especially in the December timeframe until the break, and really got excited about it. That we're seeing these results is really incredible, according to them. They don't see this in every community. So good for us. So this is the mini spreadsheet that you now have a hard copy of. I'm looking at it and it's really tiny to me. Sorry about that. But just to do some highlights here, you can see that on the first line across, words read. If you go over to the kind of light greenish or whatever color it looks like on your printout, should be light green. 9 weeks prior average words per week and 9 weeks after the launch. So it's pre-December 8th-ish time frame and after, and the percentage gains. When we talk about words read in the community, it's challenging, and we're working on with the folks at Footsteps how to isolate our registered families who are outside of the ECS community. And since it's very early in the stages, we can actually look at lists of names and identify if, you know, somebody is the child of one of our principals, which showed up on one of those lists, versus a family that we don't have registered, and it's kind of a little bit of a manual process right now. We're in the neighborhood of about 150 families outside of the ECS family group that are right now that registered through this process, which they tell me is really, really good considering it's really early. Of course, we want everybody right away, right? We're like greedy, but it's a crawl, walk, run activity to make sure that. Well, it could be both. They're too young to be in our schools, or they go to a preschool program that's not an ECS program, or they are in other schools, especially kindergarten through third, which is where we're pushing the registration, and their families have gotten our message and realized that they can participate in this. So it's early data on that, but what we know is that we've got some activity, and then it's a matter of tracking into that. But really, a big part of this kind of launch initiative was really to get our schools and our school families knowing about this, because it was introduced very quietly at the start of the school year, intentionally so that we can make sure that it works and get the teachers trained up on it and understanding how to use the tool, and there's different classroom tools that they can use. So that was intentional. So now we're really sort of out of the barn, so to speak, and now we can just grow from there. The other really cool data point is this time spent during school versus time spent after school, the last two lines. And you look at that, and that's where we get sort of the 80%, 76% usage, and increase in usage. And when we go back and look at the amount of usage during school hours before the launch versus after, we can really see the difference and how they really got excited about it. Okay, so in terms of district results, this is some exciting stuff, and you'll get, oops, sorry, this is painting weird. What's going on in there? There we go. Okay, get them all up there? All right, so August 1, I went back to August 1 instead of the 16th, because we did some early information sharing with teachers during like Ed Academy and stuff like that, and so we already saw some traction with their own families and kids that they knew. So if we look at 8-1 through 12-8, you can see that we had like 15, a little north, almost 16,000 books read during that period before the launch. Then during the launch kind of time frame, almost 23,000 books read. And then our total is north of 38,000 books read, and that's district-wide. And when you look at the sort of trend data, what I find kind of really exciting is if you look at the column project-based learning. Project-based learning is packaged projects that Footsteps has within their program. So it's something that teachers initiate in their classroom, where kids read a collection of books, and it could be like 5 or 6 books in a series. And then there's actually like a 5-week project that they do over the course of time, building early literacy skills. And early on, you can see as our teachers were starting to get used to this tool, we had about 196 during that first like 18-week period. And then during the launch period when we got noisy, it jumped up to 469, and to date we have 651. So that means that teachers in their classroom are starting to use this tool as really part of their curriculum pieces. And then the other piece that they tell me to look at a lot is this word total, and that a lot of districts really want to focus on the word exposure, because that really builds the skills with the young readers. So that's where you see the 11 million. So the next slide, which I'm sorry, it's like light blue, just the leaderboard. And so what we saw in December, once we started getting noisy about this and introducing it at Ad Team and visiting schools, is the principals naturally want to compete with each other. And before we got to mid-December, there were certain leader schools. And then there were other schools that really embraced the challenge. And so the leaderboard shifted, and Edwards, you can see, is really kind of blowing the doors off of this. Matt is just a huge champion. He's got bulletin boards up in his school. His PTA got around it. His teachers love it. We did our video shoot, which I'm going to show you in a minute there, which really got the kids jazzed. Red Hill's doing great, really good. They came out strong and got, really embraced and had a nice school presentation. June Creek, same thing. And you can see how the others kind of fall in. Interesting thing about Eagle County Charter Academy, as part of our launch in December, we shared all the information with them. And they are now deploying it in school and getting their families to register with it, and really kind of pushing that out there. So that's kind of cool to watch that growth. And then the neat thing is we've got Brush Creek Middle School. Some kids dabbling in it, and that could be older kids that the family registered, and that's fine. We let them in here. And then on the community results, we have, as I said, roughly 150 uniquely identified families. I mean, without trying to separate the grays. On this table, number 3 at the bottom, it says users not assigned to a class. That's like a school class. And there's about 18 in there, and I will tell you, like, our board president is in there and a couple of us, and where we've gone in and played with it, and so that's where that's where we all end up in there in terms of usability. But you can see the growth before. The top part is before the launch, and we had roughly, I'll pick on the books read, 292 books read by general community users, and then after the launch, sort of from the beginning of August till now, it's up to 1,227 books read. So it's trending the way that we want it to. Okay, so now,
I'm just wondering, is this considered part of our core curriculum, or is this supplementary materials? Just because I'm curious about, like, some schools doing it more incorporated in the school day, and some taking the approach that it should be more of an after school or out of school kind of piece.
Heather's not here. This is her world. But it's sort of supplementary with all the other curriculum materials. So especially in our sort of what I've observed in the kindergarten through third grade is the teachers are either picking out time of day where the kids, they say, okay, it's time for footsteps, or in the case of Edwards, they have their computer lab, and some of the classes will go there for a period to go work in the computer lab, and it's part of their computer lab time. So they're kind of blending it in so that it's mixed within that. And some of the teachers, and you'll see this in our video, are actually doing classroom lessons using the tool at some of our smart boards or Chrome boards, whatever we're calling them, where they'll read a book together as a class and go through. You saw the Book Buddies numbers, that column for Book Buddies. Book Buddies is after you read a book, it asks you questions about the book, and so it's for comprehension and those sorts of things, and so it tracks how well a kid, when they read the book, understands the book, and so the teachers are using that as a group activity together, and it's really neat to watch how they get so engaged with the words in the books, and then go on to research a topic that might be brought up in the book about walruses, and the teacher can go off to the internet and look up walruses and bring that into the fold of their classroom lesson.
I think it runs the gamut. Mrs. Eberts is in Denver this evening, which is why she's not with us. It runs the gamut in terms of opportunities, and we've put this out to principals as an extension, supplemental experience for kids. Some schools are using it during the school day, as Tammy said, some after the school day. So it's very unique to each site in terms of how they're using it, because we have a core curriculum for reading, and so this is a supplement and an extension and enrichment to that. So.
One of the stars of our video, it's her first time seeing it, so I hope you like it. We good?
I'm armed with a strong vocabulary.
If students don't come into school prepared for kindergarten, they have a harder time catching up to their other peers.
Kids have a hard time accessing content in science and social studies and doing these really cool projects when they don't have basic literacy skills.
Unfortunately, like many districts in our country, we have an achievement gap, and that's something that we work very hard on trying to close. We want all kids to be successful. Part of that is showing up for school ready to learn and being at the same place that other kids are.
Every hero has a story.
Some of the research says that some kids will show up to kindergarten knowing 25% fewer vocabulary words than other students that show up. Those kids are at about an 80% likelihood of not ever catching up.
The challenge for teachers when kids come unprepared for kindergarten is that they spend weeks, months, if not the entire year, catching them up.
We are superheroes in training.
Well, we knew we had an achievement gap, much like many other school districts around our nation. So we had to do something powerful to change the dynamic. Reading is My Superpower is this umbrella initiative that brings together all of the programs that we have in the district,
related to early literacy.
Reading is My Superpower is not just about school-age children. It's not just about pre-K children. It's about every child who lives in this community can be part of this initiative through Footsteps to Brilliance, through the Bookmobile, through this work toward early literacy.
We came up with the name Reading is My Superpower because it's fun. Kids understand what superpowers are. They all relate to their superheroes. We want them to think about reading as fun and a superpower.
What's most exciting about this project and what's most important long-term is ensuring that every student comes to us ready for academic success and that we as a community continue over the long haul to work toward that effort.
I read, what's your superpower?
We're really excited to be partnering with Footsteps to Brilliance, which is a mobile application available to any family in Eagle County and any child in Eagle County.
Footsteps to Brilliance is an app that you can download on your computer, iPad, any device, and your kids can use it to learn early literacy materials. They can read books, they can learn how to write letters, they can draw letters, they can learn letter names, letter sounds.
They have access to games, books, songs, both in English and in Spanish.
The students really enjoy Footsteps to Brilliance. They often ask me 3 or 4 times a day, when are we going on it? Is it our day to go on it today?
Footsteps to Brilliance was presented by a superintendent of the school district in Napa, California, and their demographics were similar to ours, and she showed the results, and it was just incredible to us what had been achieved through using Footsteps to Brilliance.
Reading saves the day.
My son started preschool this year in September, and so we started using it probably in October. So it's been a couple months, and he's really enjoyed Footsteps to Brilliance. He's really catching on to letter sounds and some of the rhyming words.
I have a 5-year-old boy. He always asks to use the apple, which is Footsteps to Brilliance, has a little apple icon, and I let him use it, and you can hear him doing working on letter sounds and drawing letter names. It's really productive time for him.
We're just so excited about the results that we're getting from Reading is My Superpower. Already, we're seeing a 63% increase in the number of words read by our students. That's huge. That's incredible. We just know that Reading is My Superpower is going to help us close the achievement gap.
Reading is my superpower.
Give your kids the superpower of reading by following these 3 easy steps. First, go to eagleschools.net/reading to register your family and get your super secret code. Next, download the free Footsteps to Brilliance app from any app store. And then play and read with your child 15 minutes a day, anytime, anywhere. For more information, go to eagleschools.net/reading.
Okay, so what comes next really quickly? We're going to continue this, the community outreach a lot. We know that there's some things, our friends at Footsteps to Brilliance have a lot of information and advice that they can share with us on how other communities really got their community engine going with it. And doing some more promotion of the access for families outside of the our Eagle County Schools community. Shelley and I have talked about, she does various meetings with early childhood providers about doing a gig in front of them and promoting it further. I did a presentation in front of our own preschool directors right before the holiday break when we were doing all this launch, so they took that information back to their families and got them registered before the break. We know we need to continue the emphasis with schools to increase the usage at all of our elementary and preschools. There is some differences between what's at different schools, and that would be nice to see that level off if we're really going to address the achievement gap district-wide. And then the program, one of the stepping stones, sort of a year once a community is into using Footsteps of Brilliance after about 6 months to a year, is to initiate a literacy ambassadors program through outreach to various community partners and training amongst those groups. So it's the libraries, it's parent mentors, it's Los Padres, at HPS, it's various PTAs and everybody else that we can think of, as well as you as a board will already considered literacy ambassadors by virtue of bringing this program to the district. So those will be some of the immediate next steps. There's our little cuties.
And training with them and opportunities for them to share within the schools.
Yeah. 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 So, anything else? Questions?
Thanks so much, Tammy. 9 more weeks. We see more data.
I know, it's a lot.
Does that put us to the end of the school year?